What is up, guys? It's Mateo's 2020 Politics here, and today I will be discussing the results of the South Carolina Democratic Party presidential primary of 2020. So, of course, we all know who won, and that was Joe Biden. He got first place with 38 delegates and 48.4% of the popular vote. Bernie Sanders gets 15 delegates, which is actually a pretty decent second, and 20% of the popular vote. So, of course, I am kind of bummed out that Joe Biden won South Carolina and by such a big margin because, A, I don't support him, I support Bernie Sanders, but we do have to remember the fact that Bernie Sanders is polling in first place nationally, and he's leading in the majority of Super Tuesday contests, so it was just really just one state, or one of the states rather, that Joe Biden is leading in and has won, or will win. Mainly because this state has a high African American population. Joe Biden is, of course, the leading candidate among African Americans. Bernie Sanders is a bit more mixed. He has Latinos, African Americans, Asians, white people. So it's a bit more mixed. With Joe Biden, there's a good amount of African American supporters he has, and it definitely helped him in South Carolina. Now, what I'm worried about here is the fact that this will give him some momentum. People will say, oh, you know what? I may have doubted Joe Biden, but he did pretty well in South Carolina. Maybe I should support him. And that might help him in Super Tuesday. Some people might actually come out and vote for him. Because, once again, when Iowa came along and Joe Biden got like 4th place, his momentum went down. He went down in polls. And he didn't do well in New Hampshire as a result, in Nevada as a result. He went from 1st to 2nd place in polling for Nevada. So, just as he went down because he lost momentum, I think now he'll go up because he gained momentum. He had a huge victory in South Carolina, and for that I do congratulate him. So he will probably go into Super Tuesday doing pretty well, but I think Bernie might still lead the Super Tuesday contest just because he does have the majority of the states. And Joe Biden might creep up to 2nd place in some of those states. He might even get really close to Bernie Sanders and win a couple more, possibly. But I overall still do believe Bernie Sanders will win Super Tuesday, but Joe Biden has gained enough momentum to be considered a possible winner of these upcoming contests. Now, of course, in 3rd place for South Carolina is Tom Steyer at 0 delegates and 11% of the popular vote. Now, Tom Steyer has just dropped out of the presidential race. He did so last night because he was disappointed he got 3rd place, because he did pretty well. Because he was investing heavily in the state. Sure, he got 3rd out of 8 candidates, which is actually pretty decent, but he invested in this state, and he's kind of disappointed because of the result. Pete Buttigieg also just dropped out. I found out like half an hour ago or something, because he got 4th place in South Carolina with 0 delegates, which probably encouraged him to drop out, and 8% of the popular vote. Elizabeth Warren got 5th place with 0 delegates and 7% of the popular vote. Warren has to drop out. And look, I'm sorry, Warren, because I do like your policies, but you're kind of splitting the vote with Bernie. You're being a bit of a burden. You know, he has to kind of carry you on him, because you have about, what is it, 14%? You're at about 14% in polls, according to Real Clear Politics. And why is that? Because you're seen as the 2nd most progressive candidate. Because your record isn't as consistent in Congress as Bernie's. You were a former Republican. You voted for the Iraq War. You voted for Trump's military budget. You voted to nominate Ben Carson for Trump's cabinet. And you supported Hillary Clinton in 2016. And you actually have you stated that you will be accepting corporate PAC donations if you win the Democratic nomination. And will go on to attempt to beat Trump in that way. So this does make it look kind of inconsistent. I like to call her the half-measure version of Bernie Sanders. She's known as the 2nd most progressive candidate. You can't win the presidency by being the 2nd most progressive. You can't win anything by being the 2nd most of something. Of blah, blah, blah. It's like saying, hey, I'm the 2nd most centrist candidate in this race. Please support me, centrist. No, they'll support the main centrist. It just doesn't make too much sense. So because of that, I do believe she's splitting the vote with Bernie, and seeing how the best she's done so far is 3rd place in some states, and she isn't polling first place for any other states, even Massachusetts. She might lose her own state, believe it or not. I do believe she should drop out. Amy Klobuchar got 6th place at 3.2% of the popular vote, and she got 90 delegates. No, I'm just kidding. I don't think South Carolina even has that many. But interestingly enough, Amy Klobuchar isn't doing as well as Elizabeth Warren. But I don't really think Amy Klobuchar should drop out because she's polling in first place for her home state of Minnesota for Super Tuesday. So she actually has got a shot, and she has gotten 3rd place in some states. So I would say she should drop out, like Elizabeth Warren, but she is polling in first place for Minnesota. So if Elizabeth Warren and Amy Klobuchar were to not drop out and stay in the race, I would respect their decision because they're actually doing pretty okay. I just don't really see a path forward for them. And Tulsi Gabbard has gotten dead last place at 7th place with 1.3% of the popular vote. And Michael Bloomberg isn't really included here because, well, he hasn't been campaigning in his state and he's not on the ballot. So he wasn't really trying to win since he's putting all of his effort into Super Tuesday. But Tulsi Gabbard did get last place of the candidates that are on the ballot. And Tulsi, you gotta drop out, girl. I mean, I like your policies, but you're becoming Wayne Messam. You're becoming one of those delusional candidates like Wayne Messam or Michael Bennet or John Delaney. It's happening. So, yeah, guys. Let me just summarize what happened in this video. The events that occurred in this very video on the 1st of March, 2020. Although this primary was, of course, on the 29th of February, which only happens every 4 years. You only see the 29th of February every 4 years. Fun fact, my great-grandmother's birthday was on February 29th, so she had to celebrate her birthday on February 28th, and her real birthday would be every 4 years, believe it or not. So, Joe Biden gets 1st place in South Carolina. He gets 38 delegates and 48% of the popular vote. Bernie Sanders gets 15 delegates with 19.9% of the popular vote. Tom Steyer gets 3rd place at 11.3% of the popular vote. Pete Buttigieg gets 4th place with 8.3% of the popular vote. Warren at 5th with 7.1% of the popular vote. Amy Klobuchar at 3.2% of the popular vote and at 6th place. And Tulsi Gabbard at 1.3% of the popular vote, aka 7th place. So see you guys later, and bye. I will be making a video on Pete Buttigieg dropping out and on Tom Steyer dropping out. That's why I didn't talk about it much in this video.